I moved to Willow Creek, expecting a quiet, welcoming community, the kind with trimmed hedges, smiling neighbors, and maybe a bake sale or two. What I didn't expect was the iron grip of the Homeowners Association, or more specifically, its president, Edna Thompson. Edna was a petite woman in her 60s, with sharp eyes and a sharper will, and she knew the HOA bylaws better than most people knew their kids' birthdays. She sent us a welcome letter the day we moved in, complete with a thick booklet of rules that looked more like a legal contract than neighborhood guidelines. At first, we didn't think much of it. We were just excited to make this place our home. So, within a week, I planted a small vegetable garden in the front yard, nothing big, just tomatoes, peppers, and a little basil. I thought it would be charming, even neighborly, but the very next morning we received a notice taped to our door. Visible vegetable patches are a violation, it read, with a warning to remove it within 7 days or face daily fines. I remember holding that paper, stunned. I hadn't broken a law, just grown a few vegetables. But in Willow Creek, apparently, that was rebellion. The neighbors had already started whispering. Some avoided eye contact, others watched from behind curtains. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to back down. I'd show up at the next HOA meeting and explain. I thought maybe, just maybe, a little kindness and common sense would win them over. But when I walked into that meeting, all I saw were clipboards, pursed lips, and eyes filled with judgment. And sitting at the head of the room was Edna, flanked by board members like knights around a queen. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't just about a garden. It was about control. And I had just, unknowingly, planted the first seed of a quiet war. After that first HOA meeting, everything changed. I'd gone in thinking I could reason with them, explain that a small vegetable garden wasn't going to ruin the neighborhood, but instead I found myself staring down a room full of tight-lipped neighbors clutching clipboards like shields. Edna stood at the front like a general, delivering speeches about property values and neighborhood integrity as if we were in some kind of suburban military. I tried to speak calmly, sharing my love for gardening, my hopes of growing food with my daughter, my belief that community should mean more than matching shutters. But every word I said seemed to make things worse. Whispers followed me home. Flyers showed up on doorsteps, warning about slippery slopes and the chaos that vegetable gardens could bring. It was absurd. That's when Mr. Jenkins, our eccentric across-the-street neighbor, surprised me. He'd lived in Willow Creek for decades and was infamous for his outlawed gnome collection and that vintage Mustang he insisted on parking in the street. But he was smart, funny, and clearly had a long-standing grudge against Edna. One evening, he knocked on our door with a pie and a plan. He wanted to help us fight back, not just for the garden, but for every unwritten rule that kept people walking on eggshells. Before I knew it, we were hosting small gatherings in our backyard, and more neighbors started opening up. Some were tired of Edna's overreach, others just wanted change. But the board was divided, and things started getting messy. Petitions flew back and forth, yard signs popped up overnight. People who had once smiled in passing now crossed the street to avoid each other. Edna called an emergency HOA meeting, and after hours of arguments, accusations, and one very heated monologue from Jenkins, they announced a vote. An official, community-wide vote to decide the future of front yard gardens in Willow Creek. The tension was unbearable. We had neighbors giving us thumbs up in secret and others glaring daggers while watering their roses. What had started with a tomato plant had somehow turned into a neighborhood standoff. But I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. The day of the vote felt like Judgment Day. The community center was packed. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in weeks now sat side by side, whispering, glaring, speculating. I could barely breathe as I dropped my ballot into the box, knowing that what we were voting on wasn't just about gardens. It was about how much freedom people were willing to allow each other in a place obsessed with control. The results came in just after sunset. It was close, too close, but we won. Vegetable gardens would be allowed, with modest size and visibility limits. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it wasn't triumph. It was the sense that we'd cracked something open. The next few weeks were strange and beautiful. People who had kept their heads down for years suddenly came alive. A few neighbors started gardens of their own, some small, some ambitious. Someone painted their fence blue. Mr. Jenkins put a pirate flag on his porch, in celebration, and no one stopped him. The HOA meetings didn't disappear, but they softened. They became more of a conversation, less of a courtroom. Ben and I started hosting monthly potlucks in our backyard. People came, brought food, and for the first time really talked. And though Edna lost the vote, she didn't disappear. She continued to watch, to document, to frown from behind her glasses. But she also showed up to a potluck. She didn't eat anything, but she sat, quietly, and listened. That alone felt like progress. I know the peace won't last forever. There will always be rules, and people who cling to them. There will always be rebels, and gardens, and gnomes. But that summer taught us that community isn't built on sameness. It's built on the messy, beautiful way we learn to live beside each other. And in a strange way, I'm glad it all happened. Because the day I planted that garden, I wasn't just growing vegetables, I was growing roots, and now Willow Creek feels like home.